Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Gaily News, your bold, unfiltered pulse on LGBTQ plus stories that demand attention right now. I'm your host, Elliot Bright, and again, we are bringing you the latest in LGBTQ plus news from around the world. We'll hear about fresh fights, setbacks, and the gay resistance that's pushing back. Let's dive right in, as our first story comes from the good old Western US of A. Idaho's House is advancing a bill that would wipe out local non-discrimination protections for LGBTQ plus people in a dozen cities that have them. These ordinances shield against bias in housing, employment, and public spaces based on sexual orientation and gender identity. The measure heads to the full House after committee approval, potentially overriding community-level safeguards and forcing a statewide rollback. Critics call it a blatant power grab to erase queer safety nets in progressive pockets like Boise. If it passes, local leaders lose the ability to protect their own residents, because apparently inclusion is too much for some lawmakers to handle. Next up, we head to the other corner of the country. Florida extremists kicked off the 2026 legislative session early by filing the Pride Flag Ban Bill. It would prohibit state and local government buildings from flying any flag tied to race, gender, or sexual orientation, including the Pride flag, while letting historical ones slide, the usual suspects. It also strips cities of control over their own municipal flags. Equality Florida is sounding the alarm. This is pure censorship, targeting visibility and community symbols after last year's rainbow crosswalk removals. Pride isn't politics, it's existence, and they're coming for it hard. Fitting amongst the turmoil, our next story comes from Human Rights Watch. They just dropped sharp criticism of the U.S. in its annual World Report, slamming the Trump administration's foreign policy rollback on LGBTQ plus rights. They highlight defunding global initiatives, cutting U.S. aid, which supported queer and intersex groups worldwide, and expanding the global gag rule. The report calls out how these moves have left gaps in humanitarian aid, fewer protections abroad, and a chilling effect on international advocacy. Domestically, it ties into the surge of anti-trans bills and executive orders. HRW isn't mincing words. America used to lead on these rights. Now it's actively undermining them. The damage is real, and it's spreading. Our fourth story for today takes us back over to Africa, where Botswana's same-sex marriage equality lawsuit is heating up with the next court hearing, locked in for February. A couple is challenging the government's denial of their right to wed, arguing it violates constitutional dignity and equality. This case could set a precedent in a country without marriage recognition yet, amid broader African fights. Activists are watching closely. Progress here would ripple across the continent, proving love isn't bound by outdated laws. And finally, in the EU, we get a little good news. The European Commission rolled out its new LGBTIQ plus equality strategy for 2026 to 2030, aiming to ramp up protections against violence and discrimination. It pushes member states to ban conversion therapy, criminalize online/offline hate speech inciting hatred based on sexual orientation or gender identity, and launch action plans against cyberbullying targeting queer youth. The strategy notes growing positivity toward LGBTQ plus people over the last 5 years, but stresses that violence and humiliation persist for many, especially trans folks. Brussels is stepping up where some nations lag, turning words into enforceable tools. That's your Gaily News, timely, unapologetic, and all about fighting forward. Stay fierce, stay connected, and keep raising your voice. In exciting news for us, you can now find the Gaily News podcast on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Audible. We'll see you tomorrow. Elliot Bright, signing off.